Okay, shock is a state of impending circulatory failure. Due to disparity between circulating blood volume, which is decreasing, and vascular bed volume. So if you remember this definition, immediately under the circulating comes cardiogenic. In the blood volume comes hypovolumic. And vascular bed volume, you have anaphylactic. This vascular bed volume is increasing in anaphylactic, septicemic, neurogenic, when there is a lot of pain. You know, there was a person who was trying to reduce a posterior dislocation of hip in an old person, and when he reduced it, the person was no more because of neurogenic shock. So never try to reduce dislocation and without anesthesia and sequestration. People would not know what sequestration is. Sequestration means that there is an intestine, there is an obstruction, the food keeps on coming, the intraluminal pressure increases, the arteries are blocked, the veins don't return the blood, therefore blood pools in the wall of the intestine and there is hemorrhage. Therefore there is more increase in pressure and this vicious cycle leads to blood coming but not going, and this leads to hypovolemia and shock. So this is the sequestration shock. Okay, so whenever there is circulatory failure, what happens that perfusion decreases, perfusion of tissue is decreased, and whenever the perfusion of tissue is decreased, then the major thing to be affected is oxygen. So there is low oxygen. Because of low oxygen, the respiration becomes anaerobic, which means that the pyruvic acid is converted to lactic acid by an enzyme, lactic dehydrogenase, and if you detect high levels of lactic dehydrogenase, that means that this pathogenesis is occurring. So whenever this happens, this lactic acid leads to local vasodilation, and this leads to peripheral pooling of blood. And then these blood vessels become leaky. So this leads to petechial hemorrhages. And what prevents these petechial hemorrhages? Steroids prevent it. They stabilize the membrane. So they prevent it from becoming leaky. When there is peripheral pooling of blood, there is decreased blood volume, decreased cardiac output, further decrease in perfusion, and this is called as the vicious cycle of shock. It is the selfish problem of the tissue. The second thing is which tries to combat this is compensatory mechanisms. And what should the compensatory mechanism do? They should increase the circulating, they should increase the blood volume, and they should economize on vascular bed volume. So how do we increase the cardiac output? Cardiac output is dependent on force of cardiac contraction, heart rate, and end diastolic filling. How much is the blood at the end of the diastole? What is the force of cardiac contraction? What is the rate? Okay. So this cardiac output has to be increased, and the system that increases the force of cardiac contraction and the heart rate is sympathetic system. Sympathetico-adrenal system. That will increase the cardiac output. Second thing is you have to increase the blood volume. And how do you increase the blood volume? By venous capacitance. Capacitance means ability of veins to store blood, 3200 cc. Hepatic sinusoid store blood, 500 cc. Spleen stores blood, 300 cc. And finally the kidney responds to hypovolemia. And how does the kidney respond? The kidney responds by decrease in glomerular filtration rate. Macula densa cells in the juxtaglomerular apparatus release renin. Renin becomes angiotensin 1 and angiotensin 2. Angiotensin 1 will economize circulation. That means it will increase circulation to lung, heart, brain and kidney, and decrease circulation at other places. Angiotensin 2 will secrete aldosterone, which will act on the proximal tubule to retain sodium, and this will retain water, and this will cause increase in blood volume. So the mechanisms that increase blood volume are venous collapse, hepatic sinusoid collapse, splenic sinusoid collapse, and the renin-angiotensin mechanism of the kidney. And when, of course, the GFR falls, you are in danger of anuria, and therefore you have to carefully watch for renal failure by observing renal output, blood urea, serum creatinine. Okay? And the ability of the kidney to control pH is also lost. Okay? So, this is the pathogenesis of shock. Now, how do you diagnose shock? Not by cold clammy skin, not by cold clammy skin in a gasping patient, because you will diagnose shock for post-mortem purpose, like this. So you diagnose shock by suspicion. More suspicious you are, better you are as a doctor. How do you prevent shock? By early arrest of bleeding. And we have told you 3 methods of this. One is elevation, second is pressure and compression bandage, and the third is tourniquet. Then how do you treat shock? You treat it by replace blood by blood as soon as possible, as fast as possible. And if not blood, then plasma. If not plasma, then plasma expander. If not plasma expander, then saline or Lomodex, whatever you have. Alright. And for that, what you have to master, the skill that you have mastered is how to put a IV line and how to put a central line. Okay. Now the basic difference between a cardiogenic shock and a hypovolemic shock is that in cardiogenic shock, central venous pressure will be high in cardiogenic shock. And in hypovolumic shock, CVP will be low. So if there is cardiogenic shock, that means there is cardiac tamponade, the heart is not able to expand, then you have to put in a 16 gauge needle into the pericardium and drain the pericardium. So the heart starts beating again. So central line, recognize cardiogenic shock and treat it. Then you have to monitor shock. So you have to monitor shock by general condition, consciousness, looking for other injuries like head injury. And what is the most important thing about head injury which can be clinically diagnosed? Pupil size. If the pupil size is different on right and left side, it means that there is lateralization. And this type of pupil is called as Hutchinson's pupil. And the second thing that you have to look for is the damage to the sixth nerve or the abducent nerve. What happens is that this is petrous temporal bone and this is the cavernous sinus here. So what happens that the sixth nerve would arise from the pons, would go up on the petrous temporal bone, and this is called as the bend of Wolff, bend around the petrous bone, go into the cavernous sinus, go and supply the lateral rectus of the eyeball. Okay. So if there is a head injury, a supratentorial lesion here, and this medulla is going down, then this sixth nerve will be stretched, and therefore this lateral rectus will get paralyzed. So they ask you, how would you know the lateral rectus? Therefore this nerve is also called as the weakling of the cranial cavity. How would you know that the lateral rectus is paralyzed? You will do a doll's eye movement. Normally if you rotate the head like this, then the gaze keeps in the center. So when you are rotating the head like this and the gaze keeps in the center, you are testing the lateral rectus of the left side. And when you rotate like this, you are testing the lateral rectus of the right side. So this is called as doll's eye movement. Okay. And as soon as you do this, then the left eye is not able to go on this side. It means the left-sided abducent is gone. So this is called as the doll's eye movement test. Okay. So you monitor, and you monitor the intake, output, and you monitor urea creatinine levels, sodium, blood gases, and you must give the steroids to stabilize membrane, and you must give drugs to help economize circulation. And one of the best drugs that you can use in very low blood pressure is dopamine. Not noradrenaline, because noradrenaline would cause vasoconstriction, but it will also cause vasoconstriction of the kidney, and therefore it will cause anuria. So dopamine is a better substitute of vascular economization as compared to noradrenaline. So this is how you manage shock. And one of the most important things about shock is prevent shock. And shock can occur by internal hemorrhage, by losing plasma in burns, by losing fluid in gastroenteritis, and by internal hemorrhage. Internal hemorrhage can occur in chest, in abdomen, in pelvis, and in shaft of femur. Okay, so if you can arrest bleeding as soon as possible, as early as possible, then you can save most lives for shock. This is OR MCI MCI CBC OR 1.2.